The other day, somebody left a comment on one of our videos saying, how rich do you need to be to buy these houses? And I hear that one a lot. I mean, we're living in some strange times. It's hard for most people to think about buying their personal house, let alone houses to flip. The truth is, I wasn't rich when I started. I couldn't even get a credit card. The great thing about flipping houses is, all you need to do is know the right lenders. And Mr. Commenter Guy, this one's for you. Even though you went on to call me a leech and a piece of you still asked a great question, so I'm going to give you my best answer.
Now, I've thought a lot about what it takes to be a great flipper and what prevents most people from getting started in the first place. And that's that they think they need all this money to get started. But the problem is they're going to the wrong place to get the money. See, most of you think that you go to a bank, and that is the worst possible way to get money to flip a house. Mostly because of the tests that they put you through, and more importantly, it's the way they value your property. We're gonna get to that, but first I wanna give you an example so you have a basis to compare these different types of lenders. All right, let's say you're buying this house and it cost you $200,000 to acquire the house. And then there's gonna be around a $50,000 rehab, and then you're gonna have other costs like insurance, taxes, closing costs, etc., etc. Let's call those around $10,000. All in all, you'll need 260 grand to buy this house, do the renovation, and then go sell it. For this example, we're gonna say the after repair value, the value of the house after you do all this work on it, is $350,000. So, how rich do I need to be to make that happen? Well, first, you could buy the house in cash. Pretty simple. You need 260 grand to make that happen. I know, most of us don't have that. So let's talk about going to the bank. Well, there's really two ways that a bank is gonna give you money. One is what you would call a conventional mortgage. The other is a commercial loan. So let's start with the conventional mortgage. The way that works is they're gonna give you a certain percentage of the acquisition price, the $200,000. Usually on an investment house, which is what this would be considered, they'll give you 80%. You're gonna have to bring 20% of that purchase price out of your own pocket. That's 40 grand. But then you're also gonna need to bring the $50,000 for the rehab and the $10,000 of other costs, not to mention interest as well. That means that you're gonna have to have $100,000 of your own money to make that deal happen. Now I hear you out there, well, can I buy a house with like 3 to 5% down? Yeah, you can if it's your personal house, but we're talking about flipping houses on an ongoing basis. You can only buy your personal house one time, but there's more. You see, these conventional mortgages have rules, and the banks have tests that they need to put you through. Like, what's your credit score? What's your credit history? How much cash do you have in the bank? Are you making enough on a monthly basis to cover this payment? Not only that, most of the deals you're gonna buy as a house flipper happen really quickly. And banks take forever to close on a loan. I mean, it could be weeks, even more at times. But there are certainly some upsides to getting a bank loan. If you've gone through all that, you will get the best interest rates possible on any of the other types of lending. Plus, the loan is gonna last 30 years in most cases. So you got plenty of time to finish that renovation and get this thing sold. So I would say, yeah, if you're gonna use this method of a conventional mortgage from a bank to fund your next house flip, you gotta be a little bit rich to get started. But luckily, there's better methods out there. And the next one is right there at the same bank, giving you a commercial bank loan. You gotta understand that a conventional mortgage is backed by the government. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, those are government programs that back the loan for the bank. A commercial bank loan is from the bank itself. But what you need to understand is that banks suck at owning houses, so they want to prevent that at all costs. So even though this isn't a government-backed loan, they still are going to put you through all those tests. In some cases, the test might be even more stringent. You're still going to have to give your credit score, your credit history, how much cash you make on a regular basis, how much cash you have in the bank. But there is a big upside to these commercial loans. And that is that instead of just giving you a loan based upon the purchase price, they'll actually give you a loan based upon all of the costs. So they're going to take the $200,000 purchase price, plus the $50,000 rehab, plus the $10,000 of other costs, the $260,000, and they'll give you a loan based on a percentage of that. In most cases, they're gonna give you 80% of those costs. So in this example, that'd be $208,000. You'll have to bring $52,000 of your own money to close on that deal. That's a way better deal than the conventional mortgage. And what about the interest rates? They're not as good, but they're still pretty good. But that's still a whole lot of money to bring to the table to close on a single deal. You definitely wouldn't be able to do that consistently. I mean, who has $52,000 on a regular basis? And that's where I get to the biggest problem with getting a loan from the bank. And it's the way that they value your property. In both of those cases, they're looking at the actual costs, the purchase price of $200,000, the rehab of $50,000, and the other costs of $10,000. And that's how they're basing their loan. What you really need to do is find a type of lender that doesn't look at the costs. In fact, they don't care about the costs at all. They care about the after repair value, the $350,000 that we talked about earlier that you know you'll be able to sell the house for. How do you find this ARV, the after repair value? Well, real estate agents can give you what's called a BPO, a broker's price opinion, or you can actually get a professional appraisal done, which most lenders are gonna have a professional appraisal done, even the banks, because they're gonna make sure you haven't gotten a deal that's actually really bad. So who are these people that will give you a loan based upon the value and not the cost? Well, they're called hard money lenders. Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing when I heard that name. It's a little bit too tough, but I promise you, these guys are legit. They're not loan sharks. And one more thing to understand before we deep dive into these hard money lenders and other types of lenders that value a property the same way is that banks don't really like to give loans on houses that aren't livable today, because livable means that they can start generating revenue. But most of the houses that you buy as a house flipper are certainly not going to be livable today. They're in need of a rehab. And that's the great thing about hard money lenders is they specialize in giving people loans to buy houses that aren't livable today so they can force equity into them through improvements, a rehab, and then sell the property. They exist to fund house flips. So let's take this example again of the $200,000 house with the $50,000 rehab, the $10,000 of other costs that has an ARV of 350 grand. Now, most hard money lenders will give you 65 to 75% of the after repair value. So on $350,000, 75% is going to be $262,500. Well, that's perfect because your total costs, remember, are only $260,000. That means that they're going to fund every last bit of that project. Kind of. That's where the catch is with a hard money lender, is they have interest rates and points on the front end. Let me explain what that means. Points are sometimes called an origination fee, and these are percentage points of the total amount that you're borrowing. Let's say that you did borrow that $262,500. Most hard money lenders are going to charge 2 to 4 points at the origination of the loan. That means that when you close on that property, the $262,000, you'll pay 2 to 4% of that at the closing table. For this example, let's use the rates that I generally get, which is 3 points on the front end. So for the example of $262,500, that would be $7,875 that I would pay at closing. Then you have the interest, which on a hard money loan can be pretty high. I've seen from 10 all the way to 18% annually. Now you pay these interest-only payments monthly. Now I usually pay around 12% for these loans. So for the $262,500 example, I would be paying $2,625 a month. And one more thing about these loans is they're short-term loans. They usually last 6, 12, maybe 18 months. And at the point that the loan ends, usually they'll have a way that you can extend it. And that usually means paying points again. But we're flipping houses. We shouldn't be holding it that long anyway. So using that example, if you were to hold the property for 6 months, that would mean that you were going to pay $7,875 in points on the front end, and then you would pay $15,750 in monthly interest-only payments. That means that you've added an additional $23,625 of interest to a project. That sucks, right? But here's the thing. I'm not gonna come $100,000 out of pocket or even $52,000 out of pocket. I wanna get as close as I can to coming $0 out of pocket and keep that cash in my bank account as a reserve in case things go wrong, because things always go wrong in house flips. And I wanna be protected so I don't get taken out of business. And there's more to it than that. Let's look at the example again. $200,000 in purchase price, $50,000 in rehab, $10,000 in other costs, and then $23,625 in interest payments. Now I'm all in for around $286,000, but that house is gonna sell for $350,000. Now I am gonna have to pay real estate commissions and some other closing costs, which usually add up to around 7%. So that means that I'm actually gonna clear around $325,000. Then take off the $286,000 I had to spend to get there, and I make a profit of around 40 grand. So yes, I still had to come around $20,000 out of pocket to make the $40,000, but that's way better than coming $100,000 out of pocket to make the 60 that I might have made without the interest payments, or coming 52 out of pocket and getting to the 60, especially if you can't come $52,000 out of pocket. Now you might be asking yourself, how do I come up with the $20,000? Well, there is a way to do it with $0 into the deal. How? Well, instead of buying that house for $200,000, you need to get the house for $180,000. You need to spend your time focusing on getting better deals. But what about those points you have to pay up front, or the monthly interest payments? Well, that's the thing. When you get a better deal like that, there's gonna be more money that the lender will give you. Now, different lenders work in different ways, and some hard money lenders don't like you doing that kind of thing, which leads me to the next type of lender. See, the next type doesn't care about any of those things. In fact, the interest rates are usually better. The terms are whatever you want them to be. These are private money lenders. It's basically like getting money from your rich uncle. They're like the sugar daddy for house flippers. But seriously, it might be your uncle and your aunt and your cousins. You see, a lot of these deals have multiple people who will invest a little bit of money, maybe $5,000, maybe $20,000. They care a lot less about the strength of the deal and a lot more about the strength of the relationship that they have with you, the trust that they have with you, which leads me to the reason why I really don't like using private money like this, especially for a novice house flipper. You see, you're taking risk no matter what when you're out there buying houses. Now, we do a lot of things to mitigate that risk, but basically these people are giving you money because they trust you, and you're exposing them to the same risk, and they might not even know it. Maybe once you get some more experience, you consider doing that. Now, there is a different type of private money lender. This is an accredited investor. It basically means they're rich, and they've proved it. There's certain metrics you have to meet to become accredited as an investor. And obviously these guys know what they're doing. So they know the risks that you're exposing them to, and they're willing to take it. Or not, and most likely not with a novice house flipper, which leads me to the next type of lender, which is what I call the private hard money lender. This is like a cross between your private money lender and your hard money lender. See, hard money lenders are usually a corporation, and the people that you're talking to are generally brokers of a deal that are just getting their commission. Whereas a private hard money lender, as I call them, they're either lending you their own money or their family's money, or maybe they've actually raised money from these accredited investors. But the great thing about these guys is they specialize in lending to house flippers and real estate investors, and usually they were one in the past, and they've kind of graduated. Or for a lot of them, they still flip houses and invest in real estate. That means that you're getting a free resource out of the deal, basically getting a mentor. It's in their best interest for you to succeed as a house flipper because they're always looking at where they're gonna place their money because they want that interest, which is still high, by the way. And they're looking for people that they can trust to build their business and be safe with their money. So where do you find a person like that? Well, you'd be surprised at how many of these there are out there. And the bad news I have for you is it's gonna take a little bit of networking to find them. So you go to your local real estate meetups, which I promise you they're happening wherever you're at, or go to the Facebook group that every community has for real estate investors. Ask some other people that you know that are in the game. It's not as hard as you think to find these guys. Strike up a conversation, tell them what you're working on, show them that you've educated yourself by watching YouTube videos. Now here's the elephant in the room that I've alluded to multiple times throughout this video, that you gotta get a great deal on the front end, otherwise none of this works and you'll be bringing loads of your own money to every deal. Now I made a whole video about how to get these great deals on the front end so you never have to put your money into the deal, or at least very little of it. So check it out right here. And one more thing, this whole video came from a comment that somebody left on our channel. That means that I'm out there reading them because I really wanna understand what you guys' problems are. So hit me with your best question and maybe I'll make a video just for you.
That's the worst. Oh, dude. Did you notice something wrong with this?
No.
Look at the B cam. Look at me.